So now that we are all set up here and we have the layout that I want to work with, I want to show you guys what we're working with here. Okay, so I have a beat uploaded onto my Novation Circuit, but I have a bass line loaded into the sample using some sample flips, and I have a drum track. So these are some advanced concepts with the Novation Circuit, but all you really have to know is that all of the sound coming out of the circuit that I'm about to play are on the drum tracks, and the synths are free for me to manipulate. I just want to show you guys really quick what this sounds like. Couple things to note here. The tap is tapping at the beat of the Novation Circuit. And if I click on the synths here, they are free of notes, right? Now, I'm going to go into sample flipping and sampling and imports in the Novation Circuit and the drums and all that jazz in other lessons. Today we're going to just be focusing on the Arturia Keystep and how we can get that into the circuit. But it's a pretty tasty jam, if I do say so myself. Now, why do you need a keyboard when you can have the equivalent on the Novation Circuit? I just want to point out a few things. One, every avenue of instrumentation into music provides new and interesting inspirations in your mind. You know, creativity is not something that comes purely from your own thoughts. It comes with the materials that you're also working with. I actually don't find a ton of inspiration from the layout of the keys on the Novation Circuit. I mean, they're great and they're amazing for learning, especially the modal scales, so that you can't make mistakes. But once you get to a certain point, at least for me personally, something about the layout here with the notes makes it difficult for me to find inspiration. That being said, a keyboard, I think, is a much more inspirational piece of equipment in terms of the key bed than the Novation Circuit. If you set the scales to a mode, the Arturia Keystep will only play those notes. So it is currently set on a C major scale. So if I press any notes outside of the C major scale, it's going to correct those for me. The C major scale is all white notes, so let me play some black notes. So pretty awesome. So you can actually, if you have no idea what you're doing with a traditional keyboard, the Novation Circuit will actually help you out with that and help you correct those notes. So something to keep in mind. I'm actually going to turn this to the chromatic mode setting. Now, what is it that the chromatic mode setting does that any other setting doesn't do? Well, first of all, sometimes to get expression with a keyboard, it helps to play outside the modal key to get some blues intonation or something else. For example, if I'm playing this scale, which goes along with the current track that I'm playing, I might want to work in something that adds a little nuance. All right, so what if I add a little nuance to that? So I added a key in there that was a passing tone that was outside of the modal scale that added a little bit of flavor to it. There is one deficiency with this pairing that I want to point out, and that is that 100% of the functionality of the Arturia Keystep integrates with the Novation Circuit, except for the pitch wheel here. For some reason, the pitch bend on the Novation Circuit does not have the same Midi setting as the Arturia Keystep. And for some reason, it's pretty standard practice for MIDI controllers to not allow you to flex the MIDI setting on the pitch wheel. I'm not really entirely sure why that is. I'm sure they have a great reason for doing that, but it's just how it is. So that pitch wheel can't be utilized. There are workarounds. You can have a macro knob set to pitch. I went over that in detail in my lesson on the a Novation Circuit editor. So if you really want to do that, you can refer to those lessons to figure out how to program your macro knobs. But what you can do is you can program the mod wheel here. Now, and I'm going to do a quick demo of how to program that mod wheel before we get into the other functionality of the Arturia Keystep, because I want you guys to know how to use that if you choose to make this pairing. Going over to my computer, I have up here the circuit MIDI parameters. Now this is a PDF provided by Novation Circuit, and basically what it does is it explains to you all of the MIDI mapping codes associated with the Novation Circuit. Now, what you'll see here is it starts with synth 1 and 2, and it explains to you the CC messages that cause certain parameters to change received from channel 1 and channel 2. Synth 1 is out of channel 1 and synth 2 is out of channel 2. Okay? So if you want to make adjustments to those sounds, then any MIDI CC programmed that going into those channels mod those parameters on the Novation Circuit. Now I want to point out here that I have mixed success programming the mod wheel. Some of these things work great. Some of them I haven't seen any realistic change at all. I'm not entirely sure what it is that causes these. From my experience, adjusting the oscillator parameters from the Arturia Keystep doesn't work that well. But that still gives you a ton of functionality to play around with on the Keystep itself. So let's do an example. You'll want the MIDI control center. This is free software that comes with the Arturia Keystep. It's part of registering your product. And on here, you'll want to go to the MIDI controller settings. What we're looking for is this setting right here, the mod wheel CC. Now, all of these settings are covered in the Arturia Keystep manual. It's worth taking a read through them, setting up the Arturia Keystep in a way that works best for you. But today I'm going to be just focusing on the mod wheel programming. A very common mod wheel parameter is the filter frequency. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to take this line here on the Novation Circuit MIDI mapping PDF, and frequency corresponds to the CC designation of 74. So we're going to go back to the MIDI control center, and mod wheel CC is going to be set to 74. You want to make sure that your device is synced, your Keystep is synced. So click on that, you'll see it syncing up, and that's transmitting the mod wheel CC setting of 74 to the Arturia Keystep. And actually, once you have this synced to begin with, any changes that are made will change real time. So now my Arturia Keystep has a mod wheel CC of 74 here. The way you toggle between the two synths is using channels 1 and 2. Channel 1 is on the first white key, and channel 2 is on the first black key. You have to click shift and then one of those keys to get to them. But that MIDI mod wheel CC assignment is going to send that message through whatever MIDI channel that we're currently set on. So if I set this on channel 2, and then I use the mod wheel, so yeah, there you go. So there are definitely ways that you can play around with those MIDI CC parameters. You can try any one that you think might be fun to play around with. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But there's a ton of flexibility here using that mod wheel that can make it a ton of fun. Distortion is another one that's a ton of fun to play with. I highly recommend.